how you identified which grants were available to you and how you went about acquiring those grants.
Right. So, I guess the most basic grant that you get as a startup is the SBIR, the small business grants. So NSF, NIH, DOD, they all have them. So we tapped into those. We got one from the NSF, and that was the very first grant. And then there's so many research grants that if you partner with a hospital or a university, you could also get some of those. So, for example, the Maryland Industrial Partnerships, they had a very nice grant program that we always utilize. I think we've received $300,000 from them. The whole project was actually started with a grant from the Maryland Innovation Initiative, where I got some money to provide proof of concept, and this was even before the company formation. So that was another big one. As far as the large grants that you see, you have to really fit within the scope of the specific government agency. And like with BARDA and DARPA and the other big agencies, you have to really fit within their scope. So we have not been able to get any of those yet.
And did you guys use any resources? Did you guys do all the grant writing yourself? Did you hire a grant writer, or what was that process like?
I mean, there's a part of the grant that you have to write, right? It's your vision, it's your innovation. You have to know exactly what risk you're trying to mitigate with the grant that you're writing. That part is always ours. The very first grant that we wrote, Kevin and I just put our heads down and wrote that. It took us pretty much full time for a month and a half. And we have a product to build. So we thought it was not the best use of our time. So once we had enough money to hire a grant writer, we would lay everything out, lay our vision, write what risk, what aims, and they would make it look pretty for the NSF or the NIH, because the language that you use has to be specific, and that was the most time-consuming thing. Everything else was pretty easy for us.
And roughly, what did you spend on the grant writer and any kind of grant writing services that you might have used?
So it depends. Some places just take a flat fee. Others would split it into two, which is, like, for example, for a phase 2, I think we paid, for a phase 2 SBIR through the NSF, we paid $17,000, and then there's a 5% success fee. But you're talking about a grant that's over 100 pages in total, so it's like a lot of work. For the phase 1, it's like $7,000 up front and $2,500 after you get the grant. So it was something like that. To be honest, it sounds like it's a lot, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah, it's effectively free money, non-diluted money coming into the business. And it is a lot of work. And a lot of businesses don't qualify. If you are building something heavy in R&D, that could be advantageous to the population as a whole, and or towards the government, or whatever the incentives are to which you are applying a grant. It's something worth, I think, exploring for a lot of businesses that are developing some real new technology, innovative technology. Appreciate you diving in and sharing that experience.
Absolutely.
So, tell us where the business is at today. So you went through YC, you raised about $2 million in your seed. What's the process? Where are you guys at in the clinical trial process, and what are you expecting to happen after?
Yeah, so we're still about a year and a half from the market, and we're doing all of these studies right now with different patient populations just to make sure that, because when we say UTI, like, we're thinking about like healthy individuals who get a UTI, go to a doctor, get basic antibiotics, and drink cranberry juice. But in our case, it's a little bit further, right? You have all of these populations, very specific populations. So, for example, pregnant women or postmenopause, these are a little bit, there's already bacteria like from the floor that could be in urine. So we needed to address all of these things. And then we discovered another population that was hard. So it's patients with neurogenic disease. So they have no control over the bladder. So they said, like the physician that we work with was like, if you can make it work with this population, it will work everywhere. So I was like, all right, team, this is exactly what we're doing. So we had our first read with this population, and we had accuracy of 95.9, which is above our target accuracy. We still need a couple of months to finish this study. Following that, we're just going to do our pre-sub and then run our very official trials, and then we get to the market. I'm not sure I'm allowed to tell you this, but we need another raise to get to the market. These things are very expensive.
That's to be expected as a business. Future capital needs can always be a requirement. But When it comes to these clinical trials and what you're going through on this part, like, how did you know what to go through? Have you done clinical trials before in your research? What do you have advisors that help navigate the process for you? How did you know what to do?
You just have to surround yourself with people who've done it and who are smarter than you. Because, especially you're talking about medical devices, you have to juggle 15 things at the same time. You're talking about regulatory, clinical trials, reimbursement. Even fundraising is different. Grant writing is weird. It's just... So from day one, I made sure I rely on advisors and more experienced individuals.